All right, so this gave Johnson a chance to push what he calls his Great Society. And as you can see, it's just different programs that he wanted to try and help America with. Some of the biggest ones are welfare, which we still used to get today, Medicare, Medicaid, the Education Act. This is what kind of opens everything up for the civil rights movement that we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes. This is still in effect today. You'll be thankful of it when you get to be 65 and over. It kind of takes over for when you're younger. When you're working a job, you can have health insurance. But when you get older and you're on what's called a fixed income and you're not making as much money, it's a good way for people to still have health insurance. So basically the same thing for Medicaid. As people's income starts to lower, they get put on Medicaid. So these are government-run programs to try and help people that either have very low income or are getting into the elderly where they don't have a job income. As you can see, these programs on the Great Society are very helpful. Head Start, still use it today. A lot of these programs right now are like cornerstones of these different things, whether it be health insurance for the elderly, education beginning with Head Start instead of first grade, the Immigration Act. All this stuff comes from his Great Society. So this kind of spells out what he did as soon as he took over as president. Now let's talk about the power of the TV. We've already kind of talked about it as we went through the topics, but the TV is its own topic in this unit because it explains to you how powerful it was. The picture to the right, I think, is probably the best one. Kids didn't have cell phones. There was no internet. There was no anything. At night, this is what happened. Everybody glued themselves around the TV, almost like it's a family thing. That's why you'll hear a lot of people now talk about they like to have a family night or a night when everybody's in the living room together. This is where they get that picture from this time period where everybody's glued to the television. There's a video clip on here that shows you a great example of this. This is the first televised presidential election. It's between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy. This is the first time that debates were televised. What I want you to understand about this debate is I want you to understand the power of television. People that listened to it on the radio said that Nixon clearly won the election. People that watched it on television felt like Kennedy blew Nixon away. So that just shows you how powerful the visions and images can be. If you just listen to their policies with no images, it wasn't close. But the fact that Kennedy knew how to play toward the television. He walked into this first one, he was tanned, young guy, nice hairdo. And Nixon walked in, he had just been sick. He had been sick for about 2 weeks before this. Whereas Kennedy's people told him he needed to put makeup on because the camera people told him that it makes your face look shiny. Nixon refused. Nixon had a 5 o'clock shadow where he had not shaved that day or since early that day. So Kennedy's camp knew how to work the television. Nixon's didn't, and it cost him the election. This is a video of the debate, and you'll see what I mean about how they look, how different they look. All right, power of television. During this time, you saw in Johnson's Great Society, he talked about civil rights. Well, for the first time in history, we got to see nonviolent black Americans protesting for equal rights, and we got to see how they were treated live on television. You got to see people getting hosed down with fire hydrants, getting knocked back 20 feet, police letting their attack dogs attack them. No weapon, no nothing, nonviolent protesting, just very southern states and very intolerant. Kind of just what I just said right here. TV gives everybody gets a chance to see how they demonstrated and how they were treated during the demonstrations. Here's a good video clip for you on that. And this is the moon race. This is Sputnik beat us, right? We talked about that last unit. Sputnik beat us to space. So Kennedy makes a vow to try and save face and bring back our honor as being the most powerful country in the world. He promises, okay, we might not have been the first ones in space, but we're going to be the first ones on the moon. So we push everything into the moon landing because of the space race. You remember I told you last unit, that is what started pushing this whole belief, and we still have it today, right now, that it's super important to have a lot of students specialize in math and science. It happened because of the space race. The moon landing, imagine you're sitting in the living room with your whole family, and it's 1969, and there's really nothing else to do, so you're all glued to see what's going on that night, and you're seeing live footage of the lunar lander come down on the moon and a guy step out on another body in space besides ours. So it was super, super, super powerful. I'm telling you, the TV, I can't tell you how important and how powerful and what an impact the television made. You just have to take my word for it. I mean, unless you lived it, you don't understand. We talked about the Vietnam War, and we talked about how mentally, not just physically, but how mentally challenging it was for the American soldiers. And this war was almost brought to you live and in color. There were news journalists that would follow around platoons live and film it and have the footage being shot as they filmed it. So you never know what you're going to see. This picture over on the left, I know you've seen it before. It's that iconic picture of, this is a VC. The guy to the left, that's North Vietnamese. He's communist, and he has captured someone that they suspect has supported and aided a Southern Vietnamese, either soldier or a U.S. soldier. And there's live footage of this. He walks around and just nonchalantly just takes his gun out and shoots and kills this kid, and you can see him dying right in front of you. And I mean, that's a powerful, powerful thing. When people in America saw that, they started to realize that war isn't this cool, romantic thing where a guy's over there fighting for his country and waving back at mom and his wife. They realize that it's something that's ugly that you might not want your people being over there with. So you start to have this cry of, that's a North Vietnamese guy shooting a South Vietnamese guy. Why are Americans over there? Why are we over there? For what reason? That's all the way across the ocean. Why? We need to bring our boys back home. Like I said, Vietnam is the first living room war. It's the first war where the television puts you in the battlefield. I mean, it literally puts you right beside somebody getting shot at. And as you might expect, as people start to learn more and more about war, they start to realize it's not as romantic and not as cool as you think it is, so they start screaming for their kids to come back home. Because remember, they were drafted. They initiated the draft for this war, where you had to go whether you believed in the cause or agreed with the cause or not. There was also, like I told you earlier, a belief that if you were rich, if you were in the government, for some reason your kids didn't get drafted. So there was a big, big stink about the draft in this war. Here's a little clip about Vietnam. If I've got a clip on here, you should watch it. It's good. Then, of course, we've got the civil rights movement. Thanks to LBJ and his Great Society, there's more of a push for equal rights. Okay, so this is the rise of MLK. and MLK was well known for his beliefs that black Americans weren't getting treated fairly, and that he felt through nonviolent action that you can make a change. So he makes numerous speeches. His most famous one is his "I Have a Dream" speech, which I have a link to the video on here that you can see. And he's basically just asking for what kind of everybody's still asking for today: racial peace and harmony. And this is the link to the speech. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's a very iconic moment in U.S. history. Well, as he starts gaining more and more traction, he teams up with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He is the leader of the SCLC, which is called the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So he kind of teams up the SCLC. You don't have to remember the acronyms, but just remember that he's the founding of, remember, Christian leadership, and that'll make sense because his dad was a preacher. So he teams up with the SNCC for a lot of these very high-tension rallies. Again, nonviolent, sit-ins, freedom rides, protest. Now, as you see here on the bottom of the screen, once Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated, the SNCC they did start using different violent tactics. All right, last thing I want to tell you guys about real quick, I told you I wanted to try and make this real quick and be real brief, is Cesar Chavez. And the thing you need to understand about him is we've talked about guys being treated unfairly in the draft. We've talked about black Americans being treated unfairly. Well, now he wants to get equal rights in the workplace. So he, following MLK's kind of pattern, he sets up a lot of nonviolent protest, wanting equal rights in the workplace, no matter who you are or what race you are, and that includes not originally from this country. So he starts boycotts of all the grape growers, which is made a huge impact. Then, of course, Dr. King dies. It wasn't on live TV, but they actually had filming of it. There was live footage of it, but you didn't actually see him get shot and killed. Then JFK's brother, Robert F. Kennedy, runs for president, and he was ahead and was clearly going to win, and he's assassinated. So, you're talking about, this is a very high-tension time in America, because you've got parents that think their kids are literally being sent over to die in a war that they don't want them to be in. You've got black Americans that are getting attacked openly on national television just because they want to be treated equally. And now you've got any president that thinks that anybody thinks is going to really push this equality movement has been killed. So a lot of turmoil, a lot of social and political turmoil, okay? This is about the war. There's some neat stats. That's why they could walk through the jungle and never see the enemy. They would literally appear and disappear right before their eyes and could never find out what happened to them. All right, that's about as quick as I can make it. I probably I almost feel like I haven't told you anything, but I'm trying to make this to where you'll sit down and watch it before the test. All right, there's 2 parts of it. Make sure you watch both. Good luck.